You'd think that sitting in a stuffy courtroom across from your husband would feel like a tragedy. 3 people on their side. Me and my lawyer on mine. And Greg Holloway, sitting there like a man who'd never paid a price in his life. I recognized him the second he walked in. Greg Holloway. My almost ex-husband's divorce lawyer. The man who, when I was 19, pinned me against a dorm wall at a frat house and whispered exactly what he'd do to me if I wanted a future in law. Back then, I thought reporting him would be enough. I filed a complaint, but the dean called it a misunderstanding. Greg denied everything. Said I had a crush on him, that I drank too much and tried to kiss him. He smiled through the whole hearing. Now he was smiling again. Directly at me, across that polished oak table. Mrs. Landon, he said. You look, Grace. Let me back up for a second. I'm 38. Was a teacher, once. Gave it up when Eric said we didn't need the extra income. At the time, it sounded like a luxury. Now I know it was just one more way to clip my wings. First, it was, let me handle the money, then, maybe don't spend so much time with your sister, she's kind of negative, and then, why are you so dramatic all the time? The day I found a second phone in his gym bag, I didn't cry. I just picked it up, unlocked it, his password was still our daughter's birthday, real creative, and started scrolling. There were messages and photos from women who didn't even get fake names. I put the phone back exactly where I found it. Then I waited 3 weeks. Quietly met with a lawyer. Found a counselor. Started copying every financial document I could find. Eric had made the mistake of thinking I'd melt down. He didn't realize I'd been quietly freezing over for years. So now here we were. 14 years of marriage, a daughter in middle school, and I was supposed to pretend like I didn't notice the way Greg Holloway kept stealing glances at me during the deposition, like he was waiting for me to flinch. I didn't. I just listened while he talked about how I didn't contribute financially to the household, how Eric had built a successful business from the ground up, and how I'd benefited from a lifestyle I did not help create. I almost laughed out loud. Did I not help create that lifestyle? Was I not the one who held everything together while Eric traveled for work 3 weekends a month? Who homeschooled our daughter for a year during the pandemic while he zoomed from Cancun? But this wasn't the place to argue. That's the thing about people like Greg, they count on emotion. They expect you to crack. I gave him nothing. After the meeting, I stepped into the hallway for air. Greg followed. I heard his footsteps before I saw him. He leaned against the wall like we were old friends and not predator and prey. You've got backbone, he said. Didn't see that back in school. I turned to him slowly. My voice stayed even. And you've got less hair than you did back then. Life's rough. He grinned like I'd flirted. Like it was still a game. He leaned closer. You always looked better with your mouth shut. And there it was. That switch. The mask slipping for half a second. The real Greg Holloway. Still the same man. I nodded once. Then walked away without saying another word. But I didn't forget. I went home. Kissed my daughter goodnight. Opened my laptop. I didn't know what I'd find, exactly, but I had time, patience and memory. Turns out, predators age, but patterns don't change. 2003. I was 19 and under the impression that adulthood started with fake IDs and ended with finding your soulmate at a campus library. I was wrong on both counts. I met Greg Holloway at a party I shouldn't have been at. My roommate dragged me to some off-campus event for pre-law students. I was pre-education, which is basically a different species altogether, but I wore my favorite jeans and a fake confidence. Greg was 24. Already in law school. Forward-looking and self-confident. He was charming in that professional liar kind of way, perfect teeth, too much cologne, slow talker. He zeroed in on me like he had nothing better to do. Said I was smart. Said I had presence. At 19, no one had ever said I had presence. He cornered me in the hallway near the bathroom. One hand on the wall, the other not far behind. Said things I won't repeat here. Touched me. Not all the way, not enough to leave bruises, just enough to make me feel like I'd left my skin at the door. I said I had to go. He laughed and told me not to be dramatic. I left. Ran down the stairs, out into the freezing night, heart pounding like I'd done something wrong. Thought maybe I had. Thought maybe I led him on. Thought maybe I was being sensitive. The next morning, there were my photos. On someone's ancient digital camera, stumbling out of the party alone, makeup smudged. A caption, freshman scored. Holloway's got game. By the time had the courage to speak up, Greg had already rewritten the script. I was the overeager freshman. The flirt and the drunk. He was the rising star. The gentleman who walked me to my dorm and then turned down my advances. I told a professor. She nodded sympathetically and told me rumors can ruin careers. She meant his career, of course. I transferred at the end of the semester. Changed majors. Buried the memory under lesson plans and good manners. Fast forward. 2 days after the deposition, I sat at my kitchen table with a cold coffee and a warmer sense of purpose. My daughter was at school. Eric was God knows where, probably rebranding himself as the devastated single dad. And I had a name, Greg Holloway. I wasn't naive. Men like Greg don't just vanish. They evolve. I searched for him. He was thriving. Senior partner at a boutique firm specializing in reputation management and high-stakes divorce. Multiple awards. Smiling headshots. Media appearances. Even wrote a book, Power and Partnership, The Art of the Win. There's a very specific type of man who writes a book like that. I'd read enough of them to know what wasn't being said. But people leave breadcrumbs when they believe they're untouchable. I reached out to an old friend who worked as a legal assistant at a courthouse 2 counties over. She owed me a favor from back in the day, babysitting during her bar prep. I asked for anything odd, sealed harassment filings, ethics board inquiries, strange settlements with NDAs attached. Nothing that would raise flags. Just a whisper trail. It took a week. She called me late at night, whispered into the phone like we were teenagers again. There was a case, she said. Dropped. No public record. But the girl, she worked at his firm. Summer intern. Just vanished halfway through the program. You should find her. I did. Her name was Allison Vega. She was 26 now, lived 3 hours away, and had left the legal field completely. LinkedIn listed her as a freelance editor. When I emailed, I used a burner address. Just said I needed to speak. Woman to woman. No pressure. She replied 6 hours later. One sentence, he got to you too. We met in a chain coffee shop off the highway. She brought a plain manila folder with her and eyes that didn't trust the world anymore. He did it to more than just me, she said. But I saved everything. I opened the folder. There they were, emails with subject lines like need that late night consult winking face, texts that read better learn how to please your mentor if you want a future here, and one photo she took secretly, Greg leaning over her desk with one hand flat against her chair. You could see it in his eyes. Ownership. She never filed. Said the firm convinced her she'd misread things, then offered her a glowing reference letter if she left quietly. I asked if I could copy the folder. She nodded. As I drove home, I couldn't stop thinking about how many times Greg had done this. How many women were out there right now thinking maybe it was my fault. Wondering why no one believed them. Why I hadn't believed myself for so long. I didn't go to the police. This was reputation case. And that meant I had to play in Greg's arena. So I opened another browser. Made an anonymous email. Created a fresh user on one of those law gossip tip sites, mostly used by bored associates and angry paralegals. I uploaded a redacted version of one of the emails and the desk photo. I wrote a short post. Powerhouse divorce lawyer accused of misconduct by former intern. An anonymous former intern at the prestigious Holloway and Crane law firm has come forward with evidence of inappropriate conduct, pressure, and internal cover-ups. Allegations are mounting. More soon. I hit submit. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel scared. I felt like the match had finally touched the fuse. The post hit like a paper match in a dry field. At first, it just sat there, one more anonymous whisper in a sea of online noise. But by the third day, it had been reposted to 3 legal industry forums, 2 Reddit threads, and a Twitter account known for outing toxic partners. By the end of the week, someone had identified Greg. Not by name. Just enough to make it obvious to anyone in the know, senior partner at Holloway and Crane. Boutique rep firm. Divorces and reputations, mostly high net worth clients. Greg tried to play it cool. Released a statement through the firm calling the allegations baseless, anonymous, suspiciously timed. Classic. But the tone was wrong. Too polished. Too preemptive. A few partners at the firm started pulling back. Clients got nervous. Greg was placed on administrative leave pending an internal review. Translation: we don't want the stink, even if we still like the man. Eric called me the same night the story hit LinkedIn. Was it you? You're blowing this way out of proportion, he said. This could affect my company. Maybe don't hang out with predators, I said. Just a tip. He exhaled hard. Can we just settle this? He asked. End it clean? I'll give you the house. Half the assets. I just want it over. I was quiet for a beat. Then I said, you already had your clean ending. That's what your lawyer was supposed to give you. Click. He didn't call again for weeks. By the following Monday, I'd hired a new attorney. Her name was Talia. Mid-30s. Ivy League, steel backbone, zero patience for posturing. She reviewed the entire case file in 48 hours and called me with a plan that sounded more like a playbook than a legal strategy. Greg's made several procedural missteps, she said. Sloppy filings, inconsistent language in the asset declarations, and, get this, he referred to you as non-contributory in the financial affidavit. I raised an eyebrow. Is that even a real term? Barely, she said. It's like calling someone emotionally unemployed. I liked her immediately. Talia filed a motion to review the asset evaluations. Within a week, we uncovered 2 accounts Eric forgot to disclose, both in his business's name, both fed from client deposits. He got a formal warning from the court. Greg is silent. Off the radar. No one had seen him in the building since the story broke. I started reaching out to old contacts. People I'd cut off years ago because Eric said they were too opinionated or bad influences. My college roommate. My former faculty advisor. Even that professor I once trusted with the truth. He was retired now. Living in Arizona. I sent a long, careful email. Told him everything. He responded. I remember you. We should have listened. If you need something formal, I'll write it. This doesn't undo anything. But I believe you. I read it twice. It felt like air after a long time underwater. That night, I sat on the back porch with my daughter, Grace. She was 13. She had been quiet during all of this. Polite, distant. A little too grown up about everything. Then she said, out of nowhere, Mom, did Dad hurt you? I paused. Thought about lying. Thought about simplifying. But Grace wasn't a kid anymore. Not the way you think, I said. Not with bruises. But yes. Why didn't you say anything? I looked at her. Because I was afraid no one would have listened. She nodded like she understood. 2 days later, another woman went public. Former paralegal. Different firm and different year. Same pattern. She used her real name. Filed a formal complaint with the state bar. Sent copies to local news outlets. Her statement was short, surgical, and impossible to ignore. Suddenly Greg became a headline. Second accuser comes forward against prominent attorney Greg Holloway. The firm scrubbed his bio from their website that night. Deleted all traces of him from their press materials. One partner issued a statement calling the accusations deeply troubling. And just like that, the empire cracked. They scheduled the second deposition on a Monday. I wore gray, clean, sharp, not forgettable, but not loud. The kind of gray that says I'm not here to fight, I'm here to finish. Greg walked in 20 minutes late. No apology. Just that same tired charm turned up a few notches too high. The tan was gone. His eyes were sunken. The mask was cracking. He sat across from me again, only this time, the weight in the room wasn't on my shoulders. Talia, my lawyer, opened with a procedural question about the prior financial filings Greg had submitted, specifically, evaluation of Eric's business. Mr. Holloway, she said, flipping through her binder, did you or your office personally prepare this asset evaluation? Greg cleared his throat. Yes. With the information provided by Mr. Landon. And did you verify that information through independent financial review? Greg's smile was thin. It wasn't necessary at the time. Talia gave him a look that could melt steel. Interesting. Because the accounts in question show a discrepancy of nearly $400,000. Eric shifted in his chair. Greg didn't blink. Talia continued, and you also failed to disclose a property under your client's name in Blue Ridge. That's 2 omissions. 1 financial. 1 real estate. Both documented. Both violations of court protocol. She slid 2 copies of the documents across the table. Neatly printed. Time-stamped. Cross-verified. The silence hung. The mediator called for a short recess. In the hallway, Eric cornered me. Not aggressively, just desperately. You're turning this into a bloodbath, he said. What do you want? I looked at him. The man I'd cooked for, cleaned for, smiled beside at work functions like a trophy wife who didn't know her shelf life was expiring. I want what's mine, I said. Plus the years you stole. We went back in. That afternoon, the mediator ruled in favor of majority custody. I got the house, the car, and access to a big portion of Eric's business income until the divorce finalized. But I wasn't done. That night, I sent the final piece of evidence to 3 journalists, 1 podcast host, and an anonymous email tied to Greg's firm's HR department. An audio file contained 34 minutes of conversation between Eric and Greg, recorded on my home assistant device. I'd asked Eric once if he minded it listening. He said, no one's listening unless you tell them to. Well, I told it to. The file was mostly posturing. Until minute 22. Greg, you don't need to worry about her. She's a housewife. Let me play her. I've buried girls tougher than this. Eric, she's got that look in her eye, though. Like she remembers that stuff. Greg, then we make her forget. We drag it out. Drown her in paperwork. She'll fold. By Wednesday morning, the clip had gone viral. By Friday, the ethics board released a statement. The state bar launched an inquiry. The podcast episode got 1 million streams in 2 days. Eric called me again. You bugged me, he shouted into my voicemail. This is entrapment. You can't record private. Click. And then came the twist I didn't plan, but thoroughly enjoyed. Eric filed an intent to sue Greg. Claimed legal malpractice. Said Greg's strategy damaged his professional and personal reputation. I nearly laughed out loud when I got the forwarded email from Talia. Mr. Landon intends to sever legal counsel and pursue damages. Greg, already flailing, issued a half-hearted counterclaim, and the whole thing turned into a legal sideshow with two men who thought they were predators trying to devour each other in public. Popcorn-worthy stuff. Greg sent me one final message. "You vindictive animal." I typed back. "Just thorough." It wasn't rage that drove me. It was control. The ability to wake up and know the ground under your feet belongs to you. Eric tried to appeal the court's ruling. His lawyer, a new one, less expensive and less smug, filed 3 motions. Custody, financial adjustments, property dispute. They all failed. Turns out, judges don't look kindly on men who lie under oath, hide assets, and record conversations bragging about how to manipulate legal proceedings. His company lost 2 major clients within a month of the Holloway scandal. His credit took a dive. His condo went on the market. So did his ego. He called once more. I didn't answer. Some things don't need a conversation. Greg fared worse. The ethics board investigation concluded in 90 days. He was disbarred officially. The ruling didn't mince words, a pattern of coercive conduct, abuse of authority, and professional misconduct spanning over a decade. A few weeks later a journalist reached out. Smart and fierce young woman. The kind who doesn't blink when men in suits raise their voices. She asked if I wanted to go on record to tell my full story. Said it would make waves. Said people were listening now. I looked at her over the rim of my coffee cup and smiled. Let me think about it. Because here's the thing. Funny how staying silent for too long makes you forget how loud you can be when you finally decide to speak.